think we're live. I still never know when this starts. I'm waiting for my phone to come on. I'm going to assume that we're live. So I'm going to say, firstly, happy Friday, everyone. I like doing these on Fridays, actually. It's quite a... Oh, we are live. Brilliant. I can turn that off. I love doing these on Fridays because Friday's a good day, generally, isn't it? I hope you're well. Welcome to the live stream if you're new here. If you're not, thanks for coming back. If you're watching this in the future when it's just a regular video, hello. Don't forget, if you want to, you don't have to at all, but if you fancy subscribing to the channel and also subscribing to my Substack newsletter, which is in the description, then please go ahead. You can unsubscribe to both whenever you want. You may not want it, but if you want more of this stuff and in your inbox every week, every Friday, a nice kind of behind the scenes ramble from me on Substack, it's worth a crack, I think, really. But anyway, I hope you're well. And in today's live stream, two things. As always, I'll be taking questions in a bit, any questions you like. So while I'm kind of waffling on to begin with, if you've got any questions that arise during that, then make a note of them. Or you may have come armed with questions already, who knows. But the other thing I want to talk about today is share the experience of having received this, which is my Silver Creator Award from YouTube, because this is huge. It's massive for me, and I've already shared the unboxing experience on my Mark Ellis Reviews newsletter, which was very surreal, but that was a lot of fun. But I thought today I'd just talk about the behind the scenes stuff with this, in terms of how it comes about, what happens when you get it, the feeling of getting it, and also what happens next, because this isn't the end of my YouTube career. Obviously, in a way, it's just the start of it. So that's the idea today, really. So if you're not aware, YouTube dishes out a number of rewards for creators depending on where you are in your YouTube journey. The first kind of, it's not really a reward, but it's the first recognition that you're getting somewhere, is when you hit 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. When that happens, you can apply to become part of the partner program, and that's how you earn revenue or a share of the advertising revenue from YouTube. Now, that is like I said, the first recognition that your channel is actually doing something. It's pulling numbers in, and you're onto something. So that happens at that stage, and then nothing, literally nothing happens for ages, because between 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time and 100,000 subscribers, which is what I've hit recently, you don't get anything apart from, in fact, you don't get anything at all. You just carry on pumping videos out, carry on building your audience. It's down to you to get to the next level. That's fine. I'm not moaning about this, by the way. It's just, I find it interesting there's such a massive gap. And I think it's why a lot of people don't reach that point. That, people don't get to that 100,000, because it's a long slog. Not for everyone. Some people do reach it incredibly quickly, but for me, it took me 3 years, and that's 3 years of incredibly hard work. So I find it interesting that you have to wait that long. So you get to 100,000, and then it gets worse, because you don't get anything then again from YouTube. Not even, as far as I'm aware, anyway, not even a whiff of "well done, mate," until 1 million subscribers. So you get to 100. First, you get to 1,000 subscribers. You turn on the partner program. You get to 100K, you get your little silver award, and then dust bails again until you've done that 10 times over and gotten to 1 million subscribers. And when you get to that, you get sent a gold version of this. You may have seen this on other people's channels. It's basically a slightly bigger, I think, gold version of this creator award. And then it gets even worse, because you don't then see anything from YouTube until you hit 10 million subscribers. And when you get to that point, you get the point, basically. So again, I'm not moaning about this. I just find it very interesting the way that YouTube rewards its creators. I suppose what's nice about it, it does give you that stretch goal, and it really is a stretch goal. The difference from 1,000 to 100,000 is huge, and so on and so forth. So that's how it all works. You might be interested to know what happens when you go past 100,000. I had no idea. I've never done this before with a YouTube channel. So this was my first experience of getting the 100K plaque. So I had no idea what to expect or what to do. So when I first clicked over into 100,000, obviously we celebrated, pat on the back, all the rest of it. And then I thought, right, okay, what do I do now? Do I wait to hear from YouTube? Do you have to go somewhere and fill a form in? And I heard through someone else that there is a form that you have to fill in. So I went on to, YouTube help. I genuinely did this and typed in how to apply for your Silver Creator Award, and there is a website for it. There's a proper form, a proper thing that you can go into, put in your YouTube address or handle, if you like, and they tell you if you're eligible. So I did that and it said, yes, you are eligible. We'll be in touch. Wait for an email from YouTube and a notification in YouTube Studio. So basically, I was jumping the gun a little bit. I just needed to wait a bit longer. And it took probably 2 weeks, I think, to get anything from YouTube. So they basically, after that 2-week period, sent me an email saying, congratulations, you're eligible for an award. Go to this website, fill in this form, and we'll take it from there. And what is absolutely fascinating about this, which I had no idea, is that obviously on these plaques you have presented to whoever or whatever for passing 100,000 subscribers. So that makes sense. Mine says Mark Ellis Reviews because it's for that channel. However, you can put whatever you like in here within reason. They do check it. A human being does make sure you've not put something horrendous in there. But you can I could just have Mark Ellis, or I could have Mark, or I could have, I don't know, I could have something really ridiculous in there. But you can put what you want in there. I assumed they just automatically put your channel name in there, the channel that it was associated with. So, but they don't, basically, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, so you do that, and then it takes another probably couple of weeks, I think it took to arrive. And yeah, it turned up. I unboxed it, like I mentioned earlier, on my newsletter. It comes in this nice box. But you don't just get the Creator Award. You get a couple of other things as well. One of them I've put over there somewhere, but it's another little bit of paper that says if you want to buy your team some of these, you can do that. So you get this, you don't pay for this, by the way, you get that sent free of charge. But if you want more of them to kind of, recognize your team, you can buy more of these. So that's one thing you get. But you also get this, which is a little note, which is basically, I won't read it all out, but it basically says, congratulations on your subscriber milestone. And the really nice thing, a little bit like, I've never bought a Bentley or anything, but I know certain makes of car, you get, you open the bonnet and it says on the engine, checked or made by Dave or Sarah or whatever. This is similar. So on here it says, this award was inspected and packaged with great care by Rick. I just thought that was quite nice, really. And it's not made by YouTube. It's made by let me just read it, the Society Awards. So clearly, I guess anyway, they must outsource this to someone. So I hope this is interesting. It's interesting to a YouTuber like me, because like I say, this is the first time I've done this. The other thing you get is a letter, which, again, I won't read the entire thing out, but it's quite a nice intro. So it says, do you remember your first subscriber, your 100th, or your 1000th subscriber? Chances are you do, and we know that you'll definitely remember your 100,000th subscriber. What's really interesting about that is that I do remember those milestones, but I don't know who they are. These people are anonymous. Literally no idea who these people are, which makes the whole thing slightly mystical, and it makes the whole thing brilliant, I think. But although I remember the numbers, I don't know who those people are. They could be anyone, which I think is amazing. And it just kind of says well done and all the rest of it. And it's signed these days by Neil Mohan, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is the new head of YouTube. He replaced Susan. I won't try and pronounce her surname, but she was head of YouTube for many, many years, been with Google for a long time as well. And I've got nothing against the name Susan at all, but I always wanted to get the letter from Susan, because Susan it sounds like a brilliant name to get a Creator Award from. I don't know why. Again, if anyone on this live is called Susan or has a loved one called Susan, I'm not saying anything bad about the name. I just liked the idea of it being signed off by Susan. It's my strange British humour. Sorry. This has gone off on a tangent, hasn't it? But yeah, so you get that signed by Neil. I'll do something with that. I'm not sure what. And that's it, basically. That's what you get. That's it. Bob's your uncle, as we say over here. And you get, obviously, a couple of holes that you can use to attach to the wall. I've not decided where to put it yet. I was originally going to have it somewhere in here, but as in on this side of the room, the solo club room. But I think it needs to be in the Mark Ellis reviews section over there somewhere. So I've got a rough idea, but that's my next job of many, to put that on the wall somewhere. And getting this, that the feeling of getting this is very surreal, because I guess that most of you on this, who have joined me today, are probably familiar with these little plaques. You've probably seen them on the walls of other YouTubers. I've certainly seen them countless times. And whenever you see it, you think, oh, this person clearly knows what they're doing on YouTube. They've got one of those silver play buttons. So to get one in your own hands, based on the work you've put in to your channel and to build that audience, is so surreal. And I can see one person on this call. I always call this a call. It's not a call. This isn't a Zoom call, is it? It's a YouTube live. I can see one person in the comments, who I'll mention in a moment, who's experienced this, so he knows what it's like. But it's very, very, very surreal. Really weird. It's a lovely thing, by the way. I think it's a very nicely made award. I think it's lovely. So it's very surreal. And in terms of what it means to me, it does represent, like I mentioned a moment ago, a ridiculous amount of hard work, more work than I've ever put into anything in my entire life. I've always worked hard, don't get me wrong. I've worked hard if I've been working for other people, if I've been running my own like freelance business. I've always, I've got a very good work ethic that I've always had from my parents. And just because I enjoy working, I'm one of these people who enjoys doing stuff and earning money from it and all the rest of it. But I've never worked as hard on anything as I have this. And again, people who are watching this, who do this stuff, will know exactly what I'm talking about. When it's your own YouTube channel, you guard it and protect it with your life. It's like your child. Obviously, your child is far more important, but it is a child, 100%. And because of that, like I say, you're very protective over it, and you do occasionally overexert yourself to make it work, and that can really, that can lead to burnout. I think I pretty much burnt myself out last year, in particular. It can lead to that. It can lead to it can lead to issues with your family. Thankfully, I've never had that. I've got a very supportive partner, but it can cause problems, and I've seen other people get into trouble with that. And but all that stuff comes from the passion that we put into this. We love this business. We love YouTube. It's frustrating at times. It can really kick you when you're down occasionally, but equally it can give you the best highs that I've ever experienced in any business. And also, there's no competition at all. I've made some really good creator friends in this. Some who are definitely on this call at the moment, and other people who may not be on this. I keep calling it a call. It's not a call. People who are on this live stream. So I've made these lovely friends who do the exact same thing as me. We target the same audience. We do the same things, but we're not competitors. We work together. We help each other. So all this stuff is behind getting this. And I think you have to be careful not to turn all this stuff into an Oscar speech and go on and on about it, because part of the reason I'm talking about this on this channel rather than Mark Ellis Reviews is because, to be completely blunt about this, my audience on there, although a lot of them are probably happy for me with this, they don't really care. They just want to know what I think about the Pixel 7a. That's it. And that's fine. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. So I don't want to put this stuff on that channel. That is what Solo Club's all about. But that's what goes in behind this anyway. The other thing which has really been quite overwhelming is the number of people who have congratulated me and said nice things. And I mean, you get a lot of this anyway. If you have a YouTube channel that gains some traction, even with a small number of subscribers, you always get lovely comments. They're always in the majority, those people. And I still find those very flattering, very strange, because I am, like I've always said, just a bloke from Northampton in the UK. Literally nothing special about me whatsoever. So to get that stuff is lovely, and to get it in droves whenever something fairly big like this happens is, again, really overwhelming. So again, I can see some people saying thank you in these comments. I can only say thank you to you, really, guys, because it's a bit of a cliche, but I only do this because I have the audience, and the audience keeps pushing me to do it. So it's inspiring in that respect. One thing I did want to mention about this, which again, this isn't me sort of diminishing um, the importance of this or brushing over how big it is for someone like me, but it always fascinates me how quickly you move on. So there's this big race to get to 100,000, and you know you're getting to 95, 96k, 99, then you hit it, it clocks over, brilliant, pop the champagne, etc. Then get your creator award, and then it's that kind of high that you reach that you have to come down from because you then have to crack on. You know, this is to me a business. I can't stop for too long and enjoy this moment because I need to keep the business running, and I've got lots of plans for it, and etc. etc. So it always fascinates me how quickly you kind of not get over it, but you kind of move on. You accept it, you celebrate it, and then you get on with what you're doing. So that always interests me as well. But the other thing, and a few people have asked me this question, and it was something which I was always interested in finding out myself for obvious reasons, is how crossing that 100,000 milestone impacts your ability to work with brands. So I've been working with a lot of brands for the last 3 years, and some brilliant brands, some really big brands actually, and some smaller ones. I love working with both. But it's always been quite inconsistent in terms of where they come from, uh, how often, how long they stick with you. Do have some brilliant long-term partners, brand partners, who have stuck with me through thick and thin, which is fantastic. But there's been a lot who have kind of come in and then disappeared and come back again. And I've always thought, does it improve once you go past 100,000? And it's way too early to tell that. And I have nothing to base any of this on whatsoever, apart from conversations I've had with other creators who have gone way beyond that point. Um, which is that I think that there's definitely a bit of there's a filter somewhere, I think, where a lot of agencies, a lot of brand agencies who represent these brands and look for people like me to, to tap into their audiences. I think there is definitely a cutoff, because I've had a couple of really big brands get in touch since hitting the 100K. It could just be a coincidence, who knows? But I have a feeling it's not. I think one of them in particular is DJI. So if you're familiar with DJI, they do all sorts of stuff: drones, mics, yeah, gimbals, all sorts of really basically anything that DJI makes, I want immediately. But they've been in touch. I'm now working with them next week. A car brand who I can't mention yet, they've been in touch. I'm working with them next week as well, a joint thing. And I'm not convinced those things would have come through before 100K personally. I might be wrong, but so that is something I'll keep you updated on in terms of what happens with the brand, the recognition I get from brands. But I get a feeling something has changed slightly. The other thing I think potentially changes, and I've heard other people say this who have gone beyond the 100,000 thing, which is that your audience changes slightly, and the kind of the comments you get do become a little bit more inquisitive, a little bit more. They hold you to account a bit more because you've suddenly gone past this. You're into 6 digits in terms of subs, and that is a huge number. So people seem to hold you to account a little bit more. And I have noticed a bit of an uptick in those sort of comments. I wrote about this on my Substack newsletter yesterday. So remember to subscribe to that, by the way, completely free. And if you subscribe, you can then check out the past things that I've sent out, so you can read it for yourself. But that was basically talking about the reaction that I had to my iPad Mini in Brussels video, where I took the iPad Mini to Brussels and basically used it as my only device. And most of the comments, again, were lovely, went down pretty well. It's performing very well. But I just noticed a few more people questioning the brand sponsorships that were in there. There were 2 brand sponsors in that video, quite a few affiliate links in the description, which I don't make any bones about because I need to make this business make money and grow it. But equally, that video provided a lot of value as well. But those people didn't seem to recognize that. And you always get those people. There just seem to be a few more of them for this video. Again, maybe a coincidence, but who knows? But as I say, I'm going to keep you updated with this as my journey into the 6 digits continues, basically. So that is what it's like to order, receive, and then think about, and then move on from one of these. It's an amazing thing. And again, thank you guys for everyone who has helped me get to that number on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. The goal, as you would guess, with Solo Club is identical. I want to get to that number at some stage. Who knows when? So thank you, everyone. It's time very quickly for a drink, but it's also time for questions. So hello to everyone who's joined. Hello to Jason T. Lewis. If you're not familiar, I'm sure if you're into tech, you'll know Jason. Jason is otherwise known as Painfully Honest Tech. We had him on the podcast. We had him on 8 or 16. Rob and myself, brilliant guest. We did have a lost episode, which we won't go into. We had some issues with the audio in the first recording, but it didn't matter because the second one was just as good. And that was a really good, actually, very, very appropriate for Solo Club because it was a very creator-focused discussion. And I think Jason might appear on this channel at some stage. He's not aware of it yet, but he probably will at some stage. Hi, Jakob. Lots of regulars. Rob's on the call. Rob from the podcast. Hi, Rob. So yeah, questions, guys. Hit me with anything. It's always at this point where I worry that no one's going to ask any questions. And what happened last time, if you're on this live last week, it was brilliant. I think it was probably the best one I've had in terms of the questions. They kept coming in, and they were really, really good. It was stuff where I thought, I wish I thought of that as a thing to talk about or write about. And so selfishly, it gives me topics to do things in the future. So yeah, just ask, and you can ask anything. I mean, I do always need to remind you that it's not a tech channel. This, so as much as I would like to help you with your iPad buying decision, that's a question for the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. So if we can keep it completely kind of creative focused and business focused, and you can ask me some personal questions as well if you want to. It's Friday, why not? I've just noticed that Jason of Painfully Honest Tech fame says, now that you're over 100,000, everyone will question your motives. I think that is kind of what I was getting at. I think that it's worth, if you get a chance, guys, if you go to the iPad, the most recent iPad mini video that I published this week, which was on Wednesday, I think, just have a look at the comments. I've replied to a few of them, as I often do, and I shouldn't do really, but I did. They're a bit inquisitive. They're very much, why? One guy commented and said, why did you take? Because I took obviously the iPad Mini, and I took things like a power bank and a mechanical keyboard and a few other bits and pieces. And his point was, why didn't you talk about the power bank that you took? You mentioned it at the start of the video, then it just disappeared. How did you do that? How did you charge your stuff? Because I can see that you've got a UK wall adapter in your bag, but you didn't talk about have you not got one for EU? Because that's not. It was like that, and I had to point out to him that I could have talked about those things, but it would have been immeasurably boring if I had done. But equally, they're in the description because they are affiliate links, and I need to make some money from affiliate sales to run this business and continue producing free content. So yeah, Jason, I think that probably does happen. I'm totally ready for that. Because I've never made any bones, or I've never hidden behind the desire to make this a profitable enterprise. People, not everyone. Again, these people are thankfully in the minority, but a lot of people seem to have an issue with other people making or creating a business that makes profit from doing something online. And to do that, you have to have brand sponsor partnerships. You have to have affiliate income. You have to sign up for the partner program with YouTube. A lot of people have an issue with that, which is a shame because this thing is open to everyone. And I would guess that most people who are watching this either later or are on this live now have got some desire to follow in someone like my footsteps and earn some money by doing something online. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. As long as you provide value in some way to some group of people and they like that and they enjoy it, fair play. That's all you've got to do. It's as simple as that. Right. Any questions? What have we got? I can put them on here. I forgot I can do this. So Mike, hi Mike. How long can you get away with using 4K phone for filming, or say a GoPro 11 to shoot videos for YouTube when starting out? You can get away with it for as long as you need to, Mike. You could carry on using that until you've gone way past 100,000. You could get to 1 million subscribers and still be using your phone, because the gear doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that you've got something to film yourself on. If you've got a smartphone and a window with some nice natural light, which is relatively predictable, you can shoot YouTube videos. People don't care. I mean, the one thing that I've learned since starting this business is that I mean, I'm someone who I value production, so I like putting time into the production. I like using this gear. I've always been very interested in audio, visual stuff. It interests me. So naturally, I'm going to put that effort in because I enjoy it. But some of the best performing videos I've published on Markerless Reviews have been shot on phones. They've been relatively quickly edited. They've been thrown together to a degree. But what's happened is that the story, whatever I've done with the story, and again, the value that I've offered the audience, that is what's worked. That people very rarely criticize your filming methods. You get a few people doing that, and they're just irritating, but most people don't. So don't worry about gear. You know, a GoPro 11, a 4K phone. I mean, the iPhone in particular, if you're using an iPhone, whatever Pro Max, it's such an amazing camera. Don't worry about gear. I wouldn't treat it as a barrier to growth at all. Jason says, "Say the word." Yeah, you will be on. Don't worry. Carl really enjoyed the iPad Mini video. That's reassuring. Rob. Rob says, you had the criticism about doing stuff for the views. Where do you think the line is between doing informative stuff that your audience likes and clickbait? Clickbait is, I think, vastly misunderstood. Clickbait for me, bad clickbait, sorry, is the clickbait that you get at the bottom of articles on the Sun's website where it says, "You won't believe what Rolf Harris has done now." I don't know why he came to mind. Sorry, it's that stuff. When you click through, it takes you through to something which doesn't deliver on what it is promising. That is bad clickbait. That's really bad. You've got the way clickbait works is that you have a headline which grabs attention. It has a bit of a what they call like a knowledge gap. So there's something not in there. There's a hint that you've got something to say, but you're not saying all of it in that headline. And when you go through to that piece of content, be it a video or a blog post or whatever, that is where you deliver. If you deliver on that promise that the clickbaity headline had, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Some people still won't like it and they'll tell you about it, but that's just the internet. So that's probably the line, I think, between bad clickbait and clickbait, which is, designed to bring in the right audience, basically. But the criticism for doing stuff for the views and for the clicks isn't criticism; it's factually correct because my business relies on clicks and views. That is how I trade. If I don't get clicks and views, I wouldn't be standing here. I definitely wouldn't be in this room. I'd be doing my old job, basically. So, yeah. Thanks for picking up on that, Rob. It's a really interesting point. So Alan says, please put a question at the start of your question. That does help, actually. Thanks, Alan. Because I have to always mention this, the fact that it's just me doing this. I don't have anyone. I'd love to have someone getting involved and helping with the comments, but I'm not that. I've only hit 100,000. I probably need to get to 200,000 to have someone like that. So that does help, actually, Alan. Thank you. Mike, how important is replying to all comments / engaging with your audience? Does it help with the YouTube algorithm in any way? It's really important. In terms of replying to all comments, that's definitely something you can do at the start. And it is something that I did for a long time. So probably for the first 18 months or so, I would do my very best to reply to every single comment. And I could because there weren't too many. It was manageable. What happens is that as your channel hopefully grows and you get more and more people coming in, and you get more comments, it's not possible to reply to everyone. I'm definitely at that stage now where I can't do it. There's just too many. It's way too many. I know some people they have teams that help out with that, but I'd much rather do it personally. But in terms of how important it is, it's really important because what YouTube loves is engagement. It's like any content platform. The content itself is very important, obviously, but one of the key measurements that YouTube will use is how much are people engaging with it, how many people are getting involved in the comments. And YouTube doesn't care if they're negative comments or positive comments. They do care if it's a horrible comment, in which case it will hit the filter and disappear. But if it's just a negative comment or an annoying troll comment, YouTube doesn't care. that is just positive engagement as far as they're concerned. So if you've got a video with, let's say, 10,000 views and this probably wouldn't happen, but about 9,000 comments, that is going to be very, very interesting to YouTube. Whereas if you've got a video that's got 100,000 views and 10 comments, okay, it's going to do fairly well, but it still clearly isn't doing much for the audience because they're not getting involved. So it's really important. But like I say, as your channel grows, you just can't keep replying. It's not physically possible. If I reply to every comment I get, I wouldn't get any videos done, basically. So I'm very selective these days in terms of one thing I still do is reply to trolls, which I shouldn't do because that removes my ability to reply to lovely people sometimes. So that's something I'm still working on very hard. Jason says you can make people mods for live stream comments. I might do that at some stage, Jason. I'm sure. I guess you're not offering your services. That was a joke. But yeah, I might do that at some stage. Carl, how long on average do you allow yourself to create a video from concept to scripting, shooting, editing, and promotion? It really depends on what the video is. But I think I've mentioned this in previous live streams that I've got to a stage now with my video production where I can do it in a day. A great example of this is the video that I'm making at the moment, which is the review of the Pixel 7a. Now, I've had to do this quite quickly because there's been lots of other videos I'm making, and the device came in a little bit late. It was obviously sent to me by Google. So I had to kind of fit it in and work out how to do it relatively quickly. And because I've got the process down now and I know what I'm doing, I can do it very quickly. So this video, for instance, didn't exist yesterday at all. I had the phone. I've been using the phone to test it and get some notes together. But this morning I wrote the blog post. So it's actually on the market. If you go to marketlessreviews.com now, you'll see the written review of that phone. So that was done this morning. That was finished at about 10:30 or something. Since then I've basically converted that blog post into a script, a bullet pointed script. Again, just taking the blog post and bullet pointing it out, very simple. I then sat down and did the A roll about midday. I then used Gling, which is a AI video editor thing, which basically gets rid of all the terrible takes and silences and stuff. That did a very good job of tidying up that A roll. Just before this live, I tidied up the rest of it myself and put all the little additions in and removed some of the things that Gling got wrong because it's not perfect. So I'm at a stage now where the A roll is pretty much done. I've got to cut in the second angle now from the overhead, which isn't a very fun, it doesn't take me very long. Sorry. Now, if I wasn't doing this live, I'd still be working on that video now, and within the next hour, it would have pretty much been finished, I think, including the thumbnail, which I tend to do sometimes a bit too quickly. So that's pretty much a day. I mean, I'll finish it off tomorrow. So by midday tomorrow, it will be finished. So I can do it in a day. But again, this is down to my process. Other videos do take longer. And a good example of this is next week, where I'm doing a review of a DJI action cam. I'm tying that in with a couple of days out on the road with this car that I mentioned earlier. So I'm taking a car with me as well, which is a review unit technically. Now this requires more planning and shooting on location and then coming back and editing it and all that sort of stuff. So that's a good example of a video that will take me 3 or 4 days to do from start to finish. In terms of promotion, I don't do much promotion really. I get it uploaded to YouTube, and then my VA puts it onto my social channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, etc. It gets shared through those. I don't do anything else in terms of promotion. I rely on the algorithm to do its job if I've done my job, basically. So hopefully that makes sense, Carl. Adrian, sorry. Guess this question is possibly more suited to your tech reviews. I always let one of these in, Adrian, so that's fine. But with some of the recent articles about security issues in macOS, do you use security software? I do use some of Trend. I use Trend Micro stuff because they're a partner, but I only really use it because they're a partner, not because I don't recommend it. Obviously, you don't tend to have to worry too much with Mac OS. This is definitely a bit of a techie question, which I probably won't go into in this live stream. But I've never worried too much about Mac OS. It's not targeted anywhere near as much as Windows when it comes to malware and all that sort of stuff. So although I do use it, Yeah, this is probably a topic we can probably leave, like you say, for the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. Persona 1600 is back. Thank you for the congrats, mate. I appreciate that. Adrian says, regarding comments, I watch mostly on my Apple TV, so can't leave comments. That's a really good point, and that's something actually that's always crosses my mind, which is that y I very, very rarely personally leave comments on YouTube videos. I do subscribe to people and I occasionally like videos, but I think I've probably left 2 or 3 comments in the last 10 years on YouTube videos. So whenever you get a bunch of comments, it's only a very small section of the audience that has watched that video. Most people watch it and pass through and just disappear. And either they like it, they may really like it, but you never hear about it because they haven't left a comment. They might have given you the thumbs up or whatever, but you don't actually know that for sure. Or they might have absolutely hated it, hated your guts, and vanished straight away. So you never know. The vast majority, it's worth remembering this, the vast majority of people on YouTube who watch your videos, you never hear from them. And this is a good point, Adrian, because I watch a lot of YouTube on my TV, so you can't leave comments. I don't think you can see the comments on most YouTube TV apps. But yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think that's very important. Quick drink, bear with me. Even though it's Friday, this is water. Although I will be having a beer later, definitely. Mike, what is the best way to learn Final Cut Pro? Are there any good resources or advice you might have for a newbie? Well, Mike, funny you should say that, but I do have a Skillshare class. No, not joking at all. I do have a Skillshare class, which you can try for free, I think, actually. If you don't even have to use my link, Mike, just go on to Skillshare and get a free trial for 2 weeks or something. So that's worth looking at, joking apart, because that is very much from a beginner's perspective. Aside from that, I would just get it, use YouTube just to get some advice from people who there's so many, videos out there even today, I'm very proficient with Final Cut Pro, but I don't put all of it to use. And occasionally I come up against something which is, it's completely kind of thrown me, or I don't know how to achieve something that I want to achieve. I just go onto YouTube, do a search, find someone who's done it, and bingo, you've got a new skill. So yeah, try out Skillshare for free. You can cancel it and not pay anything afterwards. But definitely use YouTube to learn stuff and just play around with it. The good thing with Final Cut Pro is it's very, very approachable, very easy to use, which sometimes is a downside, but harsh reality. That name rings a bell. I think you've left some comments recently. How do you manage to edit with DaVinci on iPad without wanting to smash your iPad? I really want to go iPad only with editing, but sheesh, I am not so sure. I've only played around with DaVinci. Basically, as some of you might know, Apple completely out of the blue a couple of weeks ago announced Final Cut Pro for the iPad. I had totally convinced myself they weren't going to do it to the point where I'd bought an M2 iPad Pro, installed DaVinci Resolve, and I was all planning to edit videos for this channel on that little setup. And then along comes Apple with Final Cut Pro. So I'm in a position now where I've got to decide whether to continue that DaVinci Resolve experiment, because I will absolutely be trying out Final Cut Pro on the iPad and trying to work it into my production workflow. But I need to think about the, the kind of time that I have to try both. So I haven't got to the point of wanting to smash the iPad because of DaVinci Resolve. What I saw of it to begin with was great, but like I say, I was only playing with it, so I've not used it in anger, if you like. I'll update if that ever changes. Persona 1600 says, when trying to build an email list for your channel, did you publish to 1 to 20 people or save the effort for when it had grown a bit? Really good question. It's a little while ago now. So I always recommend starting a newsletter list right from the word go. Just open one in, MailChimp or ConvertKit or Substack, whatever. Stick that sign up for the newsletter in your YouTube description and leave it there. Let people join. They will start to join gradually. I think from memory, I did start sending out newsletters very early. In fact, I'm fairly sure I did. And I'd recommend doing that, actually. I mean, if you're aware, you may not be, but I do every week I do a video newsletter like this for the Market List Reviews audience. It goes very well. I think I've got just over 2,000 people who are subscribed to that now in ConvertKit. The videos themselves get about, on average, 300 views. I think it's between 250 and 300. It does really well. Excuse that horn if you could hear that. It does really well. So, but I did right from the start sending them out, even though I had, like you say, 1 to 20 people. And I think the reason that's a good idea is because it gets you into the mindset of doing it. It gets you into that, the consistency of sending that newsletter out. And also, what I've always done with this stuff is I've always, in my head, kind of treated it as though I have a bigger audience than I've got. So even if I've only got 3 people on my newsletter list, and one of them is my mum, one of them is me, and the other one is a fake account I made up just to make up the numbers, doesn't matter. I've got 3 people technically on that list. And in my mind, I'm thinking, no, I'm talking to a bigger audience. And when you do that, you come across as though you have a bigger audience. And that's important. That makes you look more, it raises your game as either as a creator or as someone who has a newsletter. So yeah, just do it. Just forget how many people are on it. Just let it grow, because it really will after a while. Adrian, try DaVinci Resolve for shorts, Final Cut Pro for longs. Possibly, yeah. I mean, I don't do my short form stuff anymore. I've got someone that does that, but there's lots of different ways I can do this. The problem with this, guys, is time. It's fitting this in, and my diary is just nuts at the moment. So fitting in learning a brand, well, technically 2, including the new version of Final Cut Pro on the iPad, fitting in learning those new platforms is really tricky. But I want to, so I'll see what I can do. Jason says, speaking of email lists, what are the best ways you found to build the lists as a YouTuber? So I use ConvertKit for the Market List Reviews channel, and I use SUBSTACK for this one. No specific reason for that, really. I just chose both of them I like the look of them. In terms of the ways to build them, like I say, stick them in your description. If you write blog posts as well, which you should do, have them as the call to action at the bottom on your website. Have a pop-up. That, for me, that has been one of the best ways to gain subscribers to the Market List Reviews newsletter. That annoying pop-up that comes up after 3 or 4 seconds on my website, that captures most people. That brings them in amazingly. But aside from that, it's a case of being a little bit more proactive, talking about the newsletter. So just in videos, just slotting in the fact that you've got a newsletter, or referencing, so like I've done here, actually referencing something you've talked about on the newsletter that people have missed. So I mentioned earlier, completely purposefully, that I unboxed this on my newsletter, thinking at the back of my head, people are going to think, oh, sorry, I missed that. I want to go and check it out. So yeah, just surreptitiously, it's a bit guerrilla marketing type stuff. Fit that into your YouTube videos. What have we got here? This isn't Solo Club related or tech related, actually, but I will let it in. What F1 team do you support, and who is your favorite driver? I am a big Mercedes fan, actually, these days, and I love George Russell. I think George Russell is a shining light. Obviously, he's British, which helps, but I think the way he, without getting too kind of F1-y about this and, potentially starting a war in the comment section, I think the way he dealt with Mr. Verstappen's tantrum a couple of weeks ago was just exemplary. He was just classy, unlike Max, who wasn't very classy at all. But apart from that, I think he's a brilliant driver, and I think he's got a very exciting future. He just seems like a normal lad, like a nice guy, and I think he's got talent. I mentioned this recently on Instagram, that I've got no problem with sports people being arrogant and very confident in their own ability, but you have to be likable. If you're not likable, you think of like Muhammad Ali, Maradona, Paul Gascoigne, all these flawed but brilliant sports people. They're all likable. Some people aren't. That's all I'm going to say on F1, because it will, like I say, probably start a war. John says, thank you for your honest reviews and videos. Thank you, John. That means a lot. Thank you. Right, Richard. I'm just looking to make a podcast to promote my business. Any advice you can give me? Cheers, Richard. Any making a podcast to promote your business? I don't know if you've got started with this yet, Richard, but I would crack on with it. Just get going because it's easy to keep putting that kind of thing off. The one thing I would do is consider whether or not it's going to be something you do as a solo effort or have guests on. And my recommendation with this would be to always have guests on. Now, the slight challenge with that is getting the guests, particularly when it's a brand new podcast. The good news is that most people like talking about themselves. So I've run 2 or 3 different podcasts where I've worried right at the start about getting people in. But you do find quite quickly that when you explain the premise of the podcast and the fact that you want to sit them down and let them talk about their business or whatever it might be, their expertise, most people say yes. But the key thing is to get a whole bunch of people lined up, build some structure around the podcast. Don't just start it with a rough idea. Have a proper structure. Sections that you want to talk about, topics you want to hit on, make it the same topics for each episode, and go for it basically. But podcasts take a very long time to grow, very long time. The only good thing these days, actually, and it's a good time to be starting, actually, Richard, is the fact that YouTube is now taking podcasting much more seriously. So when you upload a podcast to YouTube these days, there's a specific option to upload a podcast, whereas before you had to do it yourself, upload it, put it into a podcast category or whatever, playlist rather. Bit of a faff and not particularly strategic, really. So YouTube is now investing a lot of time and effort in podcasting. So put it on. Make sure you put it on YouTube. Basically, use that as your primary vehicle. Stephen Bartlett has made a massive difference with this, whether you like him or not, or whether you've ever heard of Diary of a CEO or not. He has completely transformed that part, I think, of YouTube, because people love that. I think he's got 2 million subscribers now, and it has brought a lot of other people in doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing with Solo Club, so fairly soon, I promise, there are going to be some interviews that I've done with fellow content creators and solopreneurs and stuff. And again, I'm using YouTube as the vehicle for that, basically. Carl, I've tried developing the YouTube branch for my podcast, which you have kindly guested on. Have I? Carl, I have, yes. Should know that. But I always struggle to find time with my job. How did you find the time when you started out? It's really difficult. I mean, again, it also depends on your, I suppose, your situation at home. If you have a partner, if you have kids, how busy your job is, your main job. It's very difficult to fit this stuff in, but and there's no easy answer with this. There's no kind of magic wand or magic solution that makes any of that easier, really, if you're in that kind of situation. You just have to find a time somewhere that you can fit in that work to produce that piece of content and do it consistently. And that might mean potentially, pulling back on something elsewhere, or having a very supportive partner who understands that every, let's say, Thursday night at 9 o'clock, you're doing that thing for an hour. Providing you've got that support and you've got that time, just go for it. Keep going for it, basically. But there's no easy answer to that, Carl. I'm afraid it's very, very tricky. Yeah, keep going. Honestly, that's the best way to do it. Another drink. I've got a very dry throat. Some really great questions again, guys. Thank you so much for asking these. Any other question? I'm just going to see if I've missed any, because again, I do tend to scroll through this quite quickly. I don't want to miss anything, but keep them coming, guys. We've got a bit longer. Let's have a look. I think I've got most of them, actually. Yeah, I think I've got most of them there. Oh, here we go. Mike, have you mentioned, you've mentioned that you're having a big push on Twitter for 6 months. Is it proving worthwhile? I've very recently made a bit of a decision, not a bit of it, I've made a decision with Twitter, which is that, so basically to put some context around this, but what Mike's referring to here is that for the last 2 months, I think, possibly, I've been really going hard at Twitter and LinkedIn in terms of putting lots of content on there each day, and on Twitter using tweet threads, and all the content I was putting on there was about this kind of thing. It was all to do with being a YouTuber and helping people do their own thing like this. And I quite enjoyed it, but I quickly found that I was churning out the same type of self-improvement, here's 10 ways to start a YouTube channel in 2023. And it became a bit robotic, to be completely honest with you. And what worried me slightly is that the tool that I'm using for this, or was using for it, which is Tweet Hunter, and the one that I've been using for LinkedIn, which is called Taplio, made by the same company, they both have AI tools built into them, and they're designed to help you come up with ideas very quickly for tweet threads and LinkedIn posts. And you can type some stuff out and hit a button and say improve or turn into a thread or whatever. It's very useful. And I think, like I've said before on these live streams, I use AI in that way to help me get ideas, to help me develop ideas and things like that. But a lot of people don't use it for that reason. A lot of people use it just to churn out content in a bid to build their audience. And that just bothers me, because I think you can very easily fall into that trap. And although I wasn't just doing that with AI, I was genuinely using it as a way for ideation, as they say. I felt like I was slipping into a world where I was myself creating very generic content, and it's just not much fun. It's boring. I like doing this stuff. I love doing these lives. I love making YouTube videos for the Marketers Reviews channel. It really gets me going. Writing tweet threads 15 times over, not sure. So what I did a few days ago, I asked on Twitter, are tweet threads dead? And a few people said, no, I do look out for them. But a lot of people said, one of the first things I did was mute the word thread. And I'll be honest, some of the people that I follow, I've started ignoring, because their tweet threads are starting to get very similar. I don't know. I think we're reaching a bit of a turning point with Twitter, with that stuff, to the point where I've decided now basically not to do those tweet threads for the foreseeable future. I think it was a good. I didn't waste my time. It was a good experiment, but I'd much rather put the time into this stuff and into Marketers Reviews. I think that's where my time is better spent. I'm still using Twitter, and I'm using it for more kind of just tech type stuff and making friends, and having a bit of a laugh. That's how I tend to see Twitter. That was a long answer, Mike, but I hope that helps. Andy, hello, Andy. I am very well. Hope you're very well as well. Another question from Mike. Do shorts and live stream hours count towards your first 4,000? Shorts don't. I don't think. Shorts kind of sit on their own monetization thing, so that it's very much separate. I think I'm right in saying that. Live streams, I think not the stream, but the number of, because what happens with these videos, I do this live and we've got people watching now, but once I've finished and it's all done, YouTube spends about a day for some reason processing it, and it just turns into a regular video, so people can just watch this in the future. So you give it a thumbnail, give it a better title, etc., and it becomes a regular YouTube video, which is brilliant, because you get this brilliant part of it, which is the kind of live engagement and the questions and stuff, but then you're actually creating a piece of content that will live forever on your channel as well. So it's amazing. So I think because of that, I think the views, I would guess, that you get afterwards, and the watch time potentially counts towards that 4,000 hours. I'm not sure for definite, but I'd be surprised if it didn't. But shorts very much sit on their own. They've got their own structure built around how you can earn money on the partner program from shorts. In fact, Jason's pitched in on this. Jason says, I think shorts have to have 1 million views each month over 3 consecutive months. Yeah, I think you're right. That's how you can start earning money from shorts, which is hard going. Louise, another regular. Hi, Louise. Are you using Mastodon, and do you feel it would attract your target audience? I'm on Mastodon. I signed up like a lot of people, looked at it and thought, interesting, nice. I haven't got time for this. Genuinely haven't got time for it at all. I've already got way too many platforms to annoy people on, and spread myself thinly on. And I understand why Mastodon exists. I totally get it. I'm not one of the, I've been very public about this. I'm not one of these people who now hates Twitter and doesn't want to use it. I've loved Twitter from, like I mentioned earlier, making friends and connections and just having a bit of a laugh. It's been fantastic. Mastodon, I just haven't got time for it, really, Louise. It bothers me that I've got to be very careful what I say here, but there's one, I'll mention it, why not? Medium, they've made a very big thing about Mastodon, and they've kind of like pulled the plug on their Twitter stuff to a degree and disappeared into Mastodon. And because of that, their CEO, as far as I'm concerned, has just vanished. He was quite active on Twitter, but he's gone into Mastodon. I don't know where I've not heard from him for ages now, which is a bit annoying because that makes me feel like I've got to go into Mastodon to stand any chance of, you know, getting anywhere with Medium, which is a bit unfair, I think, really. But so I've got nothing wrong with Mastodon. I just don't have time for it, really. Um, Brendan. Brendan is a long-term viewer of the Marketers Review. I love it when I recognise names, who people who have been watching the channel. So, hi, Brendan. Thanks for coming on. When building your channel up, what was the biggest thing that helped it grow? That's a loaded question, isn't it? The biggest thing that helped it grow, and it's very simple. There's two things. I get very boring about this, but it's very important. The first thing is consistency. So every week, literally for the last over 3 years now, I've made at least one video every single week. Haven't missed a week at all. So consistency, but also process. So going back to what, I don't know if you missed it earlier, but if you may have heard me talk earlier about creating a video in a day from start to finish. The only reason that I can do that is because of the process. So I've built this process over time, which literally goes from the idea to hitting publish or schedule on YouTube. Everything that happens along that production chain, that process, if you like, is very well honed. I don't change things within it unless I absolutely have to. You know, I don't get kind of distracted by the bright lights of a new camera or a different editing suite or whatever. I stick with everything, basically. I think those two things, consistency and process, are the two biggest things that helped it grow, basically. And because around that, you can niche down, as they say, and you can work out what works and you can plan your ideas. But if you're not consistent and you don't have good processes, you're wasting your time with the rest of it. So it's those two things that are always the most important. All right. Any other questions, guys? No problem, Brendan. Louise, just a little follow-up. Thought about Mastodon since the Medium thing, but not taken the plunge yet. I'm still on Twitter and occasionally view some posts similar to other social media. It's each their own, Louise, isn't it? I think, yeah, if you've got time to invest in Mastodon, I'm sure it's an amazing community. I'm sure you can get lots of value from it. But for me, it's just another social media platform. I signed up to Vero. I don't know if you guys know that, which is like the Instagram competitor, which Peter McKinnon, who's a very famous photography-based YouTuber, he made a very big thing about Vero, Vero, and that it exploded because of him. And I checked it out, and again, it looked fantastic. It looked a great alternative to what is very quickly becoming an almost, I was going to say unusable platform in Instagram. That's not fair. It's just changed to the point where you don't quite know how to benefit from it. But it looks, yeah, a great alternative to that. But it's another platform. You know, when am I going to find the time to strategize about how to use Mastodon and Vero alongside Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Medium, my website, YouTube? Plus, you can have way too much of me. I don't want to flood the internet with my waffling, basically. Guys, I'm going to give you one last chance to drop any questions in the comments before we crack on, because before I head off and let you get on with your Fridays. I'm sure you've heard enough from me. So any last questions? I love these questions. But the thing, they are the thing I look forward to the most on this channel. I don't get this on Marketers Reviews because I just make the videos traditionally and publish them. So I get comments and stuff, but I've never done a live stream on Marketers Reviews. I probably won't, to be honest. So I always look forward to this because it's such a different experience from my perspective. But I think the room's gone quiet, so I think we're pretty much done. And it is 5 o'clock here in the UK, which means I need to pack up the bits in the studio and head home and go and see my little boy. Oh, look, we've got Richard. I'll let you off on this. This is the last question. Although I did say no tech questions, I'll let you off. We'll have another one. We'll make this the last question. So Richard says, will a Mac Mini M2 Pro be a big improvement over my iMac Pro? Yes, that's a very easy question to answer. It will be huge. If I don't know what spec your iMac Pro is, but the M2 Pro Mac Mini is stunning. If you haven't seen my test of it with Logic Pro running hundreds of tracks and an hour's worth of music. It's amazing. Yeah, we live in a very different world now with Macs and computer stuff, which is incredible. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on the live. This happens every week. The days occasionally change, so keep an eye. Basically, subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll see when they come up. But yeah, thank you for jumping on. If you haven't subscribed to the Substack newsletter, it's in the description. I recommend, obviously, I'm going to say this, I do recommend jumping on that because I've really enjoyed writing those newsletters every Friday. They're very different to the other stuff that I do. And I do open up quite a lot about some of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes here. And it's Substack is a great way to kind of digest that information, I think. So, but yeah, thank you guys. Thanks so much for coming on. I always forget how to end the broadcast here. But I'll try and work that out now, and I'll catch you hopefully next week, and have awesome weekends, whatever you're doing. Cheers.